Good afternoon. 3:06 now. News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we are making sense of the news. Coming up, Mark Houck will join us. He's the Catholic father of 7, attacked by the Biden administration for defending his son. He's going to react to peaceful protesters, completely peaceful protesters, looking at 11 years in prison thanks to the Biden administration. That's ahead at 3:30. 4 o'clock, Andrew Kerr from the Washington Free Beacon is here. We will talk about Fannie Willis down in Georgia, some breaking news there. And Joe Kent, candidate for Congress in Washington's 3rd District, will join us at 5 o'clock. We'll talk about Joe Biden's ongoing wars in the Middle East. And you can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Here in the United States, people detest the state of our border and the chaos that it's bringing to their cities all over the place. And there's brand new polling today from Bloomberg and Morning Consult that shows that this issue really has become the number one thing. I mentioned it was a week ago or so that Harvard-Harris ran a survey, and they found that number one issue among voters across the country now is immigration, eclipsing even the state of our broken economy. People are that concerned about how broken the border is. And 50% of Democrats, 50% of the people who would normally go in and reflexively vote for Biden, think that we need tougher border enforcement right now because it's just bringing too much havoc to their cities. Okay? So we get the addition today of a Bloomberg Morning Consult poll. And I want to start with the big headlines here. Here's the biggest. Donald Trump is dominating in every swing state. That is an unqualified statement. He is dominating in every swing state versus Joe Biden. Now, I know that there's some other polling out today that shows Biden up in nationwide polling among registered voters and these types of things. But remember, the whole score, the way you score this game, the way you become president of the United States is you win the Electoral College, and pivotally, you win the swing states. And if you win every single one of them, well, you become president of the United States very easily. That is the truth. So let's go down the numbers here. Wisconsin. These are, of course, they're swing states, so these were nail biters in the previous elections. Wisconsin, Trump up 5, 49-44. Pennsylvania, Trump up 3, 48-45. Nevada, Trump up 8 points in Nevada. In a head-to-head contest with Joe Biden, Trump is up 8 points, 48-40 in Nevada. Georgia, Trump up 8 points, 49-41. Michigan, Trump up 5 points, 47-42. North Carolina, Trump up 10 points, 49-39. Arizona, Trump up 3 points, 47-44. It was a survey of nearly 5,000 registered voters in all of those states, with a margin of error of plus or minus 1%. Trump well outside the margin of error in his dominance in this poll. Now, here's another area where it gets interesting. When they add third parties to the ballot, this becomes a Trump landslide. And those third parties include RFK Jr., Cornel West, Jill Stein. If their names appear on these ballots, here's what the math looks like as of today. Again, according to Morning Consult and Bloomberg, Donald Trump dominates North Carolina by 13 points in that scenario. Nevada, 12. Wisconsin, 8. Arizona, 8. Georgia, 7. Michigan, 6. And Pennsylvania, Trump wins by 3, which, by the way, I'll point out is the same as in the head-to-head. It's just Biden losing a bunch of vote to the third parties. So there you go. So interesting polling data today. Is it entirely predictive? Well, no, absolutely not. Of course, the left is doing everything it can to meddle in the election. You see a number of other surveys indicating that should Trump be convicted in any one of these ludicrous prosecutions going on around the country, that it would back some number of voters off from voting for him in the general election. And Democrats, of course, are banking on that. They like that kind of election meddling. That's the truth. But why are these numbers at this moment like this? Well, I mentioned before the Harvard-Harris survey from last week that said immigration is ranked number one now among so many voters across the country. And now we also get this data today, and it shows the following. Here's what Bloomberg's headline is on the subject today. Biden faces blame for border crisis, comma, swing state voter poll shows. It's the border, stupid, to paraphrase James Carville. 6 in 10 swing state voters say President Joe Biden bears responsibility for a surge in migrants at the U.S.-Mexico border. The other 4 in 10 are morons. I'm sorry, it doesn't say that. But 6 in 10 say Biden bears responsibility, which is accurate. A downbeat signal for his reelection prospects as Republicans largely avoid blame on the issue. A Bloomberg News Morning Consult poll found Biden again trails Donald Trump in each of the 7 swing states in the monthly survey and lags Trump 42 to 48% across all of those states in a head-to-head matchup. The former president's lead grows to 9 when those third-party candidates are included. The economy remains voters' chief concern at the ballot box, this is in the Bloomberg survey, by a wide margin. Yet a greater share of respondents cited immigration as their most important issue in the 2024 election than in any previous installment of the poll, while the proportion who said the same about the economy fell to the lowest yet. Okay. All right, so that's the numeric state of play right now and just how important the border is to this. So when you sit back and you puzzle to yourself, what is Joe Biden up to? He's saying the border's in crisis now, and he says, oh, we need new legislation to solve it. If you only give me the power, I can shut down the border immediately. Just give me the power, Congress. And, oh, my goodness, Donald Trump is stopping this bill from advancing. Therefore, ipso facto, the border is Trump's fault. This is the hook shot that the left thinks they can make today. And obviously, they're getting support here from the media. The corporate media is doing everything it can to support this brazen, ridiculous narrative and saying, yeah, it's Trump's fault. Trump wants the chaos to continue so he can get elected. So that's why he's stopping any real solutions to the border. This is their claim. Now, that is idiotic. Joe Biden has every power within his reach to lock down the border and stop this now. In fact, the reason we know that is because he got rid of all of the policies that were maintaining the integrity of our border in the first place. Yeah, Biden did that, so he could restore those things, and the border gets shut down. But he's not doing that. He's not. And so you have the media joining in on this. They're like, oh, yeah, it's Trump's fault, too. Yeah. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it's Trump's fault that the border's open. Trump hasn't been president for 3 years. It's Trump's fault that the current president opened the border. So it'd be one thing if it was just the media. It's quite another when you have Republican senators who are going to the media and breathing life into this horse crap. And among them are people like James Lankford. He's the Oklahoma senator who Mitch McConnell has assigned to negotiate the immigration package. You've also got Bill Cassidy of Louisiana. You've got Kevin Kramer of North Dakota. You have Mike Rounds out there saying from South Dakota, saying some of the most ridiculous possible things. Listen to some of these guys. Let's go down the list. Here's James Lankford and Bill Cassidy talking to CNN's Manu Raju today about this gigantic amnesty package. Amnesty package. Do I need to go over what we know is inside the legislation again? This was leaked out. It legally establishes 5,000 illegal aliens entering the country per day. That's 1.8 million a year. It provides amnesty to another Dreamer class. That's 250,000 people whose parents replaced American workers under the H-1B guest worker program. It keeps the mass parole programs in place, providing illegal immigrants enter through American airports and not at the border. It gives quicker permits to illegal aliens likely committing asylum fraud by ending the 180-day wait period. It expands the network of free benefits that are given to illegal immigrants at the expense of American taxpayers, and it funnels billions of dollars to the NGOs that are trafficking humans into the country. So how does this secure the border exactly? When the Daily Caller's Henry Rogers asked Senator Lankford's office whether these things were all included in the bill, they wouldn't say. They said, quote, negotiations are still ongoing. So here's James Lankford, Bill Cassidy speaking to CNN's Manu Raju today.
The former president calls this a betrayal. What do you think of that characterization?
It's certainly not a betrayal, actually. We've got to be able to deal with issues in law. That's how we actually deal with things in America.
Does he have access to the bill?
This is Cassidy now with a flippant response. Does Donald Trump have access to the bill? Now, let me emphasize an important detail. The public does not have access to the bill. We haven't seen the text of it. They won't show it to us. They refuse to show it to us. And so they say they're getting all hot and bothered about this. Like, I can't believe that people will criticize this. It's a great bill. Don't they know it's a great bill? No, we don't, actually. We don't know that. In fact, the only leaks we've seen on the subject are horrific. So why don't you clear it up for us? Why don't you release the text so we don't have to have this stupid debate where you hide the ball and the rest of us are wondering what you're doing to our country? That's Bill Cassidy. He's like, oh, has he seen the bill?
Got to be able to deal with issues in law. That's how we actually deal with things in America.
Does he have access to the bill?
Doesn't seem that way.
Okay, well, let me pause for a second on this. Do you think it's possible that Donald Trump does have a direct pipeline to Republican senators where he can talk about the specifics that are inside of a bill? Hell yeah. Of course he does. Donald Trump has better access than almost any of us to the specifics of what might be going on in a Senate negotiation.
It hasn't been released. How does he know it's a betrayal if he hasn't read it? I mean, don't be ignorant. Read the bill.
How can we do that? How can we read it? What is it? This is gaslighting. Read the bill, they scream as they refuse to release it.
Last comments from Senator Cassidy referring to a comment that former President Donald Trump made over the weekend, referring to that Senate bipartisan deal as a betrayal. But you're hearing pushback from there, Dana. But nevertheless, that is really driving so much of the discussion, the debate that is happening behind closed doors, and expect that debate to continue.
Okay, so CNN's frame is that this is Trump's fault. Now, Trump deserves credit, by the way, for killing an amnesty bill. Trump deserves a ton of credit for putting pressure on the Senate not to betray us. That's great. And as to the issue of this being a betrayal of the American people, listen to now Kevin Cramer of North Dakota flip this all on its head. So Trump obviously is against the betrayal of America. So here's Kevin Cramer.
The president came out and said that the Senate border deal is a betrayal. Is that the right way to characterize this deal?
Not at all. The only betrayal we have to worry about is whether we're betraying the people we work for.
That's us. That's us. That's actually exactly what Trump just said. Well, wait a second. Who do you work for, Kevin Cramer?
And sometimes sometimes that may line up with everybody, sometimes it doesn't. But no, it's not a betrayal.
Maybe a revealing statement from him. The people we work for. Is he referring to the American people in this or somebody else?
Not at all. The only betrayal we have to worry about is whether we're betraying the people we work for.
Is that me? Is that you? Does he work for us? Well, more specifically, the people of North Dakota? Does he work for them? What is he up to? Kevin Cramer last night to CNN's Manu Raju as well, who's getting all of these conversations, by the way. All these Republicans talking to CNN, telling CNN how much Trump is screwing everything up. It's Trump's fault. Like literally breathing life into an insane lie. There's Kevin Cramer last night.
Here's what I worry about. If we don't try to do something when we have the moment to do something, all of those swing voters in swing states for whom the border is the number one priority have every right to look at us and go, you blew your opportunity.
Oh, my God.
We were ready to give you a shot, and you blew it.
Oh, my God. So that is a Republican senator declaring out loud that he is a willing stooge of an emerging ludicrous talking point, that it is the fault of Republicans that our border is open. House Republicans have presented a tougher border package called H.R. 2. It's never been given the time of day in the United States Senate. It was passed by House Republicans. It would make it so that, whatever Biden wants to do, he can't leave our border unsecured the way he is now. That's the way they're handling it. Now, Biden, of course, ignores the Constitution and law, so we'd see what that looks like if it actually came into practice. But it's a real bill. It's a real bill designed to really crack down on the illegal immigration crisis that's going on, the invasion right now in our country. And so Kevin Cramer and these other Republicans have the audacity to stand up there and say, if we don't pass an amnesty, then we're going to lose swing state voters who rank this illegal immigration problem as their number one issue. This is gaslight. This is the opposite of the truth, which is also known as a lie. It's a lie, and you're playing into it. It's disgraceful. And these guys are not the only ones. I mentioned Mike Rounds. You hold tight for Mike Rounds. The Republican from South Dakota. Talk about breathing life into deranged left-wing conspiracy theories. Mike Rounds goes for a full grand slam here. I'll share that with you in just a moment. I tried. There's so much breaking news. It's hard to keep track of all of it. Mike Rounds is who I was talking about, the Republican from South Dakota. He's a United States Senator. According to Politico, he has now been claiming on the record that he believes that the people who are arguing against passing this amnesty bill may be doing it because they're being paid by Russia. A Republican, sounding like Adam Schiff, Senator Mike Rounds, Politico, says, indicated that Russia could be behind some of the messaging against the bill. Quote, I suspect that a lot of the internet rumors are very well coming from overseas, where they would love to see this shut down because some people would rather not see funding for Ukraine, he says. Remember, the way that they were trying to slip this in, you had some Republicans saying, look, not another dime for Ukraine's border unless you secure ours. So ghouls in the Senate interpreted that as, okay, let's put a giant amnesty package together and then also send money to Ukraine, and then we'll say we did both. No, that's not what we asked you to do at all. That's the exact opposite of what we asked you to do. So now Mike Rounds, who is I thought he represented South Dakota, not Zelensky, is saying, oh, it must be Russian trolls. It's all these Russians, these pro-Russians. Putin stooges are the people getting in the way of this excellent immigration bill. This is insanity. Remember, they haven't released the text. They still haven't even let you see the bill. And then they're mad at you. They say that if you're opposed to this, you're probably a Russian plant. What? Release the damn bill then. If you're so proud of it, let us see it. They won't even let you see a single punctuation mark in this thing. It's the way it works. So we're going to browbeat them into submission. That's the plan. Just keep hectoring them. Show it to us. Go ahead, show it to us. How great is it? Go ahead, show me. If it's great, I'll support it. I'll eat my words. Oh, it secures the border, really? Perfect. Let's do it. There's a reason they're not releasing it. It's amazing. Hey, coming up, Mark Houck will be with us in just a minute. We'll talk to him about the Biden administration trying to imprison completely peaceful protesters for over 11 years. That's their plan. Also, some new breaking footage today, undercover footage capturing some comments from White House officials on what they really think of Biden and Kamala. It's ahead. Good afternoon to you. 3:35 now. News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up on the show, Andrew Kerr is here from the Washington Free Beacon. We'll talk about Fannie Willis and the latest in her scandals. Boy, that case down in Georgia is completely falling apart, and it's well-deserved. Andrew's got the latest there. And then Joe Kent, candidate for Congress, will be with us at 5 o'clock. We talked to him about what is happening in the Middle East right now and how it's Joe Biden's fault, unfortunately. And you can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. We saw this week the news of Americans who were peacefully protesting back in 2021. They were peacefully protesting the death of children. They were outside of an abortion mill. And when the Biden administration got a hold of them, they eventually charged all of these people who were singing and praying outside of the abortion mill with violating something called the FACE Act, Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act. And this week, a jury found these 6 pro-life activists guilty. And as a result, they are looking at upwards of 11 years in prison now. Completely peaceful, merely praying and singing. For more on this, I want to bring in Mark Houck. He's a Catholic father of 7. He was targeted by the FBI as well for being pro-life. He defended his son in front of a Planned Parenthood in Philadelphia. And he's also a candidate for Pennsylvania's 1st Congressional District. Mark, good to have you back with us, sir. Thank you very much.
Sure, Vince. Great to be with you.
Let's begin with this case where you've got these people who were merely singing, praying outside of one of these abortion centers. Their lives are being very much upended for that, aren't they?
Oh, for sure. But it's part of the experience. When we're going up against evil, that you expect that you're going to be persecuted for it. So, the civil disobedience that Paul Vaughn participated in and the others, and I've done it as well on my end, you're aware of that. And so, you're fully aware of the potential of all this. And, usually everyone's very calm about this and understanding of those First Amendment rights that we have. But,
Yes.
Sadly, the Biden regime is targeting us for exercising those rights.
Right, and normally something that comes up every so often from prosecutors is this idea that they have prosecutorial discretion, that they can spend their time focusing on the actual threats to public safety, enforcing the laws that address the most imminent threats to the public. Do you think this rises to the level of being some sort of imminent threat to the public?
No, absolutely not. And frankly, the law is being misapplied. In my case, it came out, I had the same attorneys that defended me, Thomas More Society. It came out that the FACE Act only applies to the people in the building. It doesn't apply to people outside. So this has all been on the House floor with Ted Kennedy and a conversation with David Dornberger saying, does this apply? And he said, absolutely not. The FACE Act, as they wrote it, only applies to people inside the building. So once again, the federal courts are going to rule in their own opinion and make up their own laws.
This was, like I said, in 2021, this was Nashville outside of one of these abortion mills. I want people to hear what it sounded like as the Christians who were there were praying and singing outside. All right, so completely peaceful. And when you hear that, and we obviously you talk about the praying and the singing of church hymns, it strikes me that they really have it out for Christians who demonstrate.
Yeah, it appears as such, right? People of faith are targets of the deep state. I was as well, and we still are. So, it is a reality of the times we live in. And I keep saying to people, tyranny and dictatorships are coming when they wake sleeping children and arrest their father at gunpoint, just like they did with Paul, just like they did with me. So, we are being targeted, and the American people need to continue to vote in this upcoming election with that in mind, because this is really a referendum on the FBI, the Justice Department, and these unjust laws.
Yeah. Meanwhile, there have been a bunch of pro-life crisis pregnancy centers across the country that have been routinely firebombed, attacked, and terrorized. And we almost never hear about suspects being taken into custody for those incidents.
Well, that's because those suspects were at night, right? Isn't that what the Justice Department told us?
They did.
They really can't see and identify them. Whereas, they'll come under the cover of night to collect us, myself included. So, look, it's totally clear that what the agenda is, and that we as Americans need to vote with that in mind. And
yes.
This is one of the reasons why I'm running, and I know others as well, because enough's enough. We need to protect these rights, which our founding fathers established for us.
Have you come to know with these other pro-lifers who have been subjected to the cruelties of the Biden justice system?
Well, I talked with Paul Vaughn on the phone. He and I had conversation up to his election, dear God, excuse me, his conviction.
Yes.
But frankly, what's interesting, yesterday was the anniversary of my acquittal, and then as ironic as that is, they had their conviction. I know Joan Andrews Bell personally. She's another one that's in prison right now, who is pending her sentencing. So some of these are friends of mine. I've met Lauren Handy. She's in prison right now. So these people are warriors. They're like Martin Luther King. It's an unjust law for them, and they're doing what they need to do to draw attention to these things.
But Martin Luther King, although he was imprisoned by the government for his acts, didn't spend 11 years in jail, did he?
No, but he drew attention to probably one of the biggest issues of our era, right?
Yes.
The civil rights issue. So, you got to do it that way. And these people, and myself included, see this as the civil rights issue of our time, with abortion and the preborn child's life. So, God bless them. As Paul keeps saying, God is in control, and, it's going to appeal. So we got to pray for that appeal, and they got great attorneys helping them.
Do you get the impression that they're keeping their heads up in the face of all of this? This must be very difficult to deal with for their families.
Well, I'll just give it to you in the lens for me. I was prepared to go to prison, and I knew that we were taking on the full force of the government, Vince, and I knew that you don't win when you go up against the government. I was surprised that I'm here talking to you right now.
Yes.
I would be surprised if anyone told me that I would be in this position. But you know what? God's grace was sufficient for me, and I think for these people that it is sufficient, that God is consoling them in ways like you and I, would not understand unless we're in that situation. So I think their heads are high. I think they're proud. I think they're proud that they're suffering for God and for the babies.
Yeah. I mean, because you do know, even as you mentioned, Martin Luther King definitely knew. You know that if you are going to run afoul of the regime's dictates here and these laws that they impose on people who are just peacefully protesting, that there may be consequences. But the reality here is no decent person thinks that someone who's sitting in a wheelchair and singing a church hymn should be subjected to 11 years in prison.
No, this is what they're doing. They're sending a message to pro-life America. Why did they keep me in shackles and ankle shackles and chain me to a table for 6 hours? They want to humiliate. The process is the punishment, and they want to exercise and abuse the law and have this two-tiered system of justice.
They really chained you to a table for 6 hours.
Oh, yeah. After I was arrested in belly shackles in front of my children and ankle shackles. And I was chained to a table for 6 hours with those same shackles, and they kept them on me as I was being released. So, again, it was just to humiliate. And, of course, that's, what Joe Biden and his goons and Merrick Garland and the Justice Department want to do. They want to come after those that are pro-life because this is their radical agenda.
It's demonic is what it is. Did you ever encounter any of the law enforcement officers who were handling you having a sense of shame about the way they were treating a peaceful man?
Look, most of those guys probably didn't know what was going on that day. They were just signing up for their usual raid so they can tick it off their list so they can be recognized as a full-blown FBI agent. The guy that knew the most was the lead agent. He was at my trial. And, one guy had the courage actually on the day of the raid to thank me and said it was a pleasure meeting me. So I sensed that he thought things were wrong and it shouldn't have happened. And they recognized, many of them that day, that this was we didn't get the bad guy today.
Yes. So now that you're running for Congress and you have experienced all of this, do you get the sense that the better days are ahead, or are we in for a lot of more difficult times as it relates to this issue and so many others?
Vince, it's the first time in the history that a government has been weaponized against its own people. So this is unprecedented. And everyone says, this is the most important election. Well, this might be. And so I think if Joe Biden is reelected, it's not going to get better. It's going to get worse. I'm running so that, we can prevent that from happening to others. The guy that I'm running against, he's a Republican, but he's the only former FBI agent in Congress. He said nothing. He did nothing. He's part of the deep state. He's part of the Biden regime because he votes with him 70% of the time. So we got to get people like this out of office. And we have to have people going to Congress with integrity who want to serve the people and uphold the Constitution. Unfortunately, we have far too many people seeking careers in politics and wanting to become millionaires while they're there. So, this is what we're exposing, and we're exposing their record. And, we need more people willing to step up. It's not fun. I got to tell you, it's been the most toxic thing I've ever done in my life. But I'm willing to do it for the good of the republic because it's falling apart.
Well, God bless you for it. And it does make me wonder, is like, how is it that Joe Biden can keep calling himself a Catholic president? Because you'd think if he was, that he would spare a single word for people like you or people like these pro-lifers, these Catholics, these Christians in Nashville who just had their lives destroyed by his administration.
Well, look, the man is excommunicated as a Catholic. Like it's a de facto thing, even though, it's not formally talked about. He's publicly in sin. He's promoting abortion, which is a scandal, to the church, and it would put him in excommunication with the church. And so, this is the reality of it. But he doesn't care because the Pope told him to keep doing what he's doing. And sadly, we have a bunch of confusion, misplaced compassion all around. And Joe Biden is just another example of a Catholic who doesn't understand what it means to be Catholic. And Nancy Pelosi and the like, Ted
Yes.
Kennedy, all did the same thing before.
It's amazing. And so unfortunate. All right, Mark Houck, thank you as always, sir, for your time today. Really appreciate your insight into all of this tyranny, and thank you for serving your country. It means a lot. Mark, really appreciate your time, sir.
Thanks, Vince. God bless.
That's, again, Mark Houck, a man who was arrested in front of his kids, break of dawn, put in shackles. Remember, he's only accused of literally shoving a guy out of the way of his son. The guy runs up and gets in his son's face and starts yelling at his boy. He pushes the guy back. The locals don't think to even prosecute it. They're like, that's ridiculous. I'm talking about the Philadelphia district attorney. These are like Soros people. They didn't even think this rose to the level of prosecution. Oh, just the dad defending his kid is fine. And then the Biden administration gets a hold of it years later and decides that they're going to crush this guy, crush him. Luckily, it went to an acquittal in the trial. Mark Houck survived it, and now he's out to try and correct the system. He's running for Congress to fix this. But they arrested him, put him in shackles, chained him to a table for 6 hours. A nonviolent man, a decent man. That's what we're dealing with. And boy, these are, if we had a real media, they would cover these stories with aggression. Like, for real. If we had a real, genuine news media that was worthy of the rights that are protected in the First Amendment, they would cover these stories with aggression. But instead of speaking truth to power, they're defending it. They're defending power crushing the powerless. The unborn, the most vulnerable among those powerless. You know, on the issue of the border, the House Homeland Security Committee yesterday advanced 2 articles of impeachment against Alejandro Mayorkas, and boy, has he earned them. 2 articles of impeachment. The House is set to take up a full vote on that soon. And the reporting indicates that it is likely to pass, that even the so-called centrist, moderate Republicans are inclined to impeach Mayorkas. There's some quibbling here and there. There's some holdouts, but we'll see what it looks like in the end. The first article of impeachment against Mayorkas accuses him of willful and systemic refusal to comply with the law. It refers to the record levels of illegal border crossings and all of these foreign nationals who've been released into the country. The second article of impeachment accuses Mayorkas of a breach of the public trust. And the committee believes that Mayorkas perpetrated and perpetuated the border crisis by directing his agency to limit immigration enforcement back in September of 2021. Remember that statement he put out saying that being here illegally is not a basis for being removed. You've got to do worse than that. You can't just break that law. You got to do a lot more. And so a lot more people started pouring into the country as a result. We're looking at millions a year coming in. Yesterday, Democrat Robert Garcia tried to upend all of this and said Donald Trump has a plan to secure the border. And as he's describing it, stop me when we get to the part where you think that this is all a good idea. Take a listen.
I want to remind the public that Donald Trump and House Republicans also have their own ideas for the border. So let's review the majority's border ideas that they've actually presented. Here they are. Donald Trump actually has said that he wants to build alligator moats along the border. That's one of his incredible ideas.
No, stop. I already said I support it. I've seen a lot of conservatives pointing that out. They're like, I already support this. Why do you need to sell me on it?
Another idea that Donald Trump has promoted is he actually wants to electrify the border fence and maybe even put some spikes on the border. That's another Donald Trump and MAGA majority border idea. Another idea, which I'm not sure how well it would go, is he wants to actually bomb northern Mexico with missiles.
The cartels.
That's another Trump idea. And finally, I think one of the ones that I think is the most grotesque is suggestions that instead we should maybe just shoot migrants in the legs as they cross the border.
Well, that's decent of him. He doesn't say kill them. He said wing them. Just disable them. Maybe people will stop coming.
So once again, the Donald Trump and MAGA plan is out.
By the way, I don't even know if Trump has said any of these things in particular or any version of that. But it's hilarious what Robert Garcia said.
Gator moats, bombing northern Mexico, shooting migrants in the legs, and electrifying the fence and putting spikes on them. That is the Donald Trump border plan.
Well, if you're not for that, at least give it the old college try. Maybe just stare at people and say, hey, stop it. Let's start there. We're not even doing that. We're saying, welcome in to the United States of America, if you can call it that anymore. Coming up, Andrew Kerr joins us. Fannie Willis's election meddling collapsing in Georgia. The latest headlines on that subject with the great Andrew Kerr coming up next.